welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about 11 turnoffs that you may have when you own a Hellcat. Stay tuned. So in today's video, I want to talk about some of the turnoffs you may find when owning a Hellcat. Now, don't get me wrong, owning a Hellcat it's a blessing. I mean, there's really, you have to be pretty nitpicky to find things wrong with owning this vehicle. But that being said, there are things that will get on your nerves if you spend every day, driving this thing. And this is coming from a daily driven perspective. The first thing is going to have to be the weight. I mean, realistically speaking, you know what you're getting when you buy this car, but it's still not going to help you from feeling like you're driving a massive boat. And that's exactly what this is. I mean, the curb weight, I believe, is right around 4,500 pounds. And that's without someone in here who, weighs another 180, 200 pounds. So realistically speaking, these are heavy vehicles and you feel it when you drive. Now, that being said, you do have the differing suspensions. So you can make the vehicle feel a lot tighter than it actually is. It really does not feel like it's as heavy as it is, but it still is heavy. When driving through corners, the limits of this vehicle are reached very quickly. So that's something to consider. One of the second things about this car that I wouldn't miss if I ever got rid of it is the brake dust. And that problem is solved actually pretty quickly with ceramic brake pads. But the brakes that come with the Hellcat will produce so much brake dust that you'll find yourself cleaning your wheels very, very frequently if you care about the look of your car. So that's also another thing to consider. The third turnoff with owning a car like the Hellcat is you will run into issues like oil consumption. So the engine is a 6.2 liter supercharged V8, and the oil that goes into this engine is relatively thin to begin with. And so there's different thicknesses of oil, and the thinner the oil, the more likely you are to have oil consumption. And I've noticed that this engine consumes oil. We had an oil change done at 16,000, and by 22,000 the engine was low on oil. It was giving me a check engine light. And so, as it turns out, the owner's manual will state that you should be checking your oil levels at every fill up, at every gas station, which realistically that's a little excessive, but that does highlight that you do need to be checking the oil gauges in this car very frequently. One thing you can do is go to vehicle info and you can check on your oil pressure, and that'll give you an idea of whether or not something's wonky. And so 58 oil PSI is actually relatively average and where you should be at, but keep an eye on that. So the fourth turnoff from owning a vehicle like this is there are smaller vibrations that you'll hear. And unless you have your music on 24/7, which most people do, you really won't hear most of them. But if you ever want to stop and listen to the engine and the supercharger, you're going to notice some of these smaller vibrations, and it just makes you wonder, I'd have to say the fifth turnoff with owning this vehicle is you'll notice the vehicle, at least the Challenger, will squeak at high speeds. And I don't think every Challenger is like this, but with this 2016, we're talking about speeds that no one should be going to begin with. But it just makes you wonder if the car is rated for such a high top speed at roughly 130, 140, it starts to squeak like you wouldn't believe. And I'll try and find a video clip of either something I've recorded or someone else, but it's kind of concerning. Again, you're spending all this money on a vehicle that is squeaking way before it should. I mean, again, it sounds like there's an airflow issue somewhere with the vehicle once it gets to a certain speed. It's going to scare you at first because it sounds like the brakes are about to pop off the right side of the vehicle. This is something that I really don't like about the vehicle, and it is a turnoff. I don't want to feel less confident in going fast in my vehicle. So my sixth turnoff from owning this vehicle, this Hellcat, this Challenger in general, are the blind spots. You have to be very, very careful when driving this vehicle because the blind spots are actually rather large. That being said, this vehicle offers a lot more visibility than some of its counterparts like your Camaro and even the Mustang. So turnoff number 7, if you ever plan on taking care of your vehicle in terms of washing it yourself, you're going to notice that the trunk is going to hold a ton of water. And so drying the trunk is going to be the majority of your drying process. But what I've found really helps is to crack the trunk lid open, dry off all the excess stuff that's pooled in there, and then leave it at about a 45-degree angle if you can balance it right, and let it drip out. There are a few holes in the back of the trunk that you're gonna find water coming from for the next few minutes. So something else that I would never miss about my Hellcat is the cup holder placement. Now, you'll notice we've got one down here by the left. That's not too big of an issue for me, but I've noticed other people having issues. Maybe if you've got a little bit bigger legs than I do, you find yourself like bumping into this sometimes when you're driving this thing pretty hard. Again, it's not the lightest vehicle, so you're gonna feel the weight as you take corners, and sometimes your leg may push on that. But this isn't the one I have the biggest issue with. It's really these ones here. These cup holders get in the way if you like having your hand on the shifter, or if you even drive a manual. I can find them being very, very difficult to deal with. It's just an awkward spot, and there really isn't a great place for them, but I feel that they could have found something better than what it is right here. So now we're on turnoff number 9, and that's gonna have to be the AS1 line. At least on this specific Challenger with this windshield, the AS1 line is what indicates where you can have this strip of tent. Now, if your tent goes below this AS1 line, it's technically grounds for tickets and being pulled over for illegal tent. So on the Challenger, I'll have to show it. I'm not sure if you can see it in this video, but so that right there is the AS1 line. It's kind of a joke. I mean, no one's gonna bother putting a strip. That's we're talking about right here. That's not gonna do anything for you while you're driving. So that's another turn off I have with the vehicle. And again, I don't know if that's specific to my model or not, but that is a turn off I have. So the 10th turn off of this vehicle is there's no automatic window roll up. And this is a pretty minor thing. I mean, at this point we're kind of grasping for straws, but with a car that costs as much as this does, you would think that if it's going to go down automatically, it should come back up automatically. And I'm not going to do that right now just because of the wind noise, but it's kind of a pain that you have to sit here and hold them up to roll the windows back up. And again, I know first world problems, but we're talking about a car that cost, you know, brand new, north of $75,000 if you got this thing packaged anywhat decently. So again, that's a little mind-boggling to me. And the windows go up at different speeds, which again, it just kind of further highlights the annoyance of you having to hold them there. You're going to watch the left one go up faster than the right. Turn off number 11. And that is, in all reality, we're driving a Fiat Chrysler automotive product. And so there's been a history of build quality not really standing up to the test of time. And so that is something you need to consider. And have I noticed wear and tear on this vehicle yet? You know, there's some minor things, but ultimately speaking, no, not yet. And this thing is still relatively brand new. We're talking about a 2016 with under 25,000 miles. So you're really rolling the dice. You have to know that. And this is something that Chrysler Automotive Group has, you know, addressed. They are trying to improve the build quality of their vehicles so that they last longer. But statistically speaking, again, their products may not always do very well. So you're really rolling the dice whether or not you're going to have issues with your model. You should look up, before you own a Hellcat, a list of problems that Hellcat owners will find themselves having. I have not had nearly as many problems as some other owners have had, knock on wood, but you definitely want to be aware of some of the things. That being said, you're driving a Hellcat. I mean, this vehicle is absolutely amazing. So for me to sit here and say that these 11 turnoffs are actually turnoffs, you know, they're really just kind of little annoyances that you're going to find when driving this. You are interested in Hellcats and you end up getting one, you'll love it, no doubt about it. But these things that I've mentioned may or may not bother you. So that is just something to keep into consideration. Well, this is going to wrap up the 11 turnoffs that you want to consider before owning a Hellcat. You know, I think that it goes without saying that owning a vehicle like this is nothing short of a blessing, and those of us who know what this is, you'll love every second of it. But I just wanted to make those who are considering a Hellcat aware of some of the things you may find yourself dealing with. And in the next video, we're going to talk about the 11 turn-ons, things that you would definitely want to consider before getting a vehicle like this, or things that may persuade you to own a vehicle like this. So again, thank you for watching, and until next time.